everyone. Today we will discuss deviance and crime. As you remember from social interactions class, we already discussed about norms and social conformity. Today we will discuss about the non-conformity of people to societal norms. So what did we mean by norms? Norms are rules of conduct that specify appropriate behavior in a given social situation by people. So, just as not everyone conforms to all the rules of a society, everyone also doesn't break all the rules of the society. The people always choose certain things and obey certain rules while disobeying other rules. What do we mean by deviance is that they are the modes of action that doesn't conform to all the norms or values held by a society, or not as a society, but most members of the group. They don't conform to these norms, and these forms of behavior are considered highly esteemed by the group or regarded negatively by the others. All social norms carry inherently the sanctions that ban or punish certain behavior, certain deviances based on these, or certain non-conformities. So sanctions is a reaction from others that is meant to ensure that the person, the deviant person or group, complies with the given norms. We have different understandings of sanctions. For example, there are positive sanctions which reward the conformity, which rewards conformity of the group, conformity of the norms of the group. And then we have negative sanctions. Negative sanctions are the punishments of non-conformity. For example, these negative sanctions can be formal or informal. What can be the formal sanctions? Formal sanctions can be courts or prisons or asylums, or informal sanctions, for example, being segregated from a group or not obeying, or glares or gossip. These are also negative sanctions, informal sanctions. You are not specifically put on a prison, but you are also not welcomed by the group or the majority of the group. What is important about this is that crime, like if these deviances have crime issue. Crime depends on the social institution of a society. Remember, deviance doesn't necessarily mean crime. It is only crime when the institutions of the society accept this as a crime. Therefore, you can see that there's a sociological aspect of the term crime. One thing can be a accepted norm in one society, whereas the same act can be considered a crime in another society. For example, smoking marijuana. Smoking marijuana may be an accepted not a norm, but an accepted behavior in certain societies, but you can end up in jail in other societies. So in those societies, it is a crime. It is not inherently crime, but the societal institutions turn it into a crime. That deviance is a crime. So when we look at the theories of deviance, first we see the functionalist theories. The functionalist theories argue that crime and deviance result from structural tension and a lack of moral recognition within the society. From that, we can first discuss about Durkheim's understanding of deviance. As you remember from our first lectures, that Durkheim argues that the anomie, the concept of anomie, leads people to the norms of the society. It happens when the norms of the society is not replaced with the new norms. In modern societies, the change is so fast, so rapid, that the old norms, such as religious institutions or cultural values, are not replaced with new ones while abolishing them. Therefore, it creates an anomie in people, and this leads to deviances. However, what is important about Durkheim's idea is that that anomie exists because there is no clear rules or codes of conduct of behavior in the society. But still, he argues that crime and deviance is necessary for society. First of all, he argues that it is necessary because it brings about change. certain deviant behaviors is the only way that there are certain changes occur in society. For example, in former societies, maybe women were not allowed to leave house in the late hours or in general. But then with deviances and an increased deviances, the society learns to accept this and embrace it inherently. And then this kind of change comes to societal or cultural behaviors. So it stops being a deviance. It becomes something that's accepted or something that is expected. The second one, why it is important, is that it also makes a system maintenance or like boundary maintenance. That kind of behavior, that kind of deviance unites or creates coherence within the society and acts upon it and clarifies what can be accepted by the society and what is unacceptable by the society. So it clarifies the boundaries. From Durkheim's ideas, Merton built about 5 different characteristics of deviance, not deviance, but 5 different kinds of deviances based on the crime or based on the structure of the society. So Merton argued that it is not just an inherent aspect, rather it is in the very structure of the society. An individual's behavior is based on the strain put on the individual when these norms are in conflict with the societal expectations or the social reality. So he divided into 5 different characters how people respond to these situations. The first one is conformists. Now, conformists usually accept the general norms and values and they obey the rules to achieve them. They don't care about whether this kind of acceptance brings success or failure, but they do it nonetheless because they are conforming all the rules and values. The second one is innovators. Now, innovators accept the socially approved values, but what they used is maybe illegitimate in society, but still in order to achieve these goals, they can use illegal values. For example, criminals who want to be rich and who want to be accepted in the society as the rich and feel the pressure of being rich, so they do illegal things to achieve this value, to achieve the respect the society gives to a rich person. So what can they do? They do either drug trafficking or they do other stuff, but at the end they reach that generally held value of richness or the monetary values. The third one is ritualists. Ritualists conform the accepted standards of a society, but they don't care about the values or the inherent reasons of why these behaviors, why these standards are achieved. So they are just obeying the rules. And the retreatists, they both reject the values, they both reject the approved means of doing this, and therefore they carry their own values. For example, the hippies can be considered as retreaters. They are not trying to change anything, but they are not obeying or they are not focusing on the generally held values and the means to achieve them. Rebels, on the other hand, different than the retreatists, is that they reject the existing values and they also reject the means to achieve them, and they try to create new ones. They try to create new values. They try to create new ways to achieve them. For example, the members of radical groups, for example, the Greeners, or for example, different political parties, the radical political parties, they want to change the structure or the fabric of the society to achieve these norms and values. Other than those functionalist theories, we have interactionist theories. Now remember, interactionist theories are usually focusing on individual behavior or one-on-one behavior, more in the like sub-levels. The first one can be the learned deviance, which is created by Edwin Sutherland. He argued about the differential association, meaning that the criminal behavior is learned through association with different groups or different members, which normalize or which conforms this deviant behavior as a normal behavior or as accepted behavior. For example, if a child is grow up with thieves or prostitutes, that's his or her normalcy. Therefore, he is learning this deviance, and in the end, through interaction with each other, he obeys these rules. He conforms to the reality of that group or that society. It is also it's also the way to make money. So he or she learns this system, learn this behavior, and copies it. The second one is labeling theory, first introduced by Howard Becker. It's an approach that suggests people become deviant because certain labels are attached to these people, or through other people in the society, through political authorities, through institutional authorities, through judiciaries and everything. For example, if a child is breaking a window, it may be considered as, okay, he is a child and he is doing this. But through labeling theory, if that child is the child of a thief or child of a criminal, then usually the society argue that, or the other people argue that, yes, he is exactly like his parents, or she's exactly like her parents. That's why she's a criminal and she will be a criminal no matter what she does. So once you attach that label to that kid or that person, Becker argues that through this labeling, he or she internalizes this characteristic, and he also or she also accepts this behavior. What is important about this is that with labeling theory, you are not the person, the deviant person or the labeled person is not doing the first move. It is usually the people who represents law and order, who impose morality on others do the labeling, not the others. It also inherently expresses the power structure of the society. So Edwin Lement also distinguished about this labeling theory on primary and secondary deviation. Now, what do we mean by primary deviation is that the first labeling occurs, it is the initial act of transgression. For example, you break the window. This is the primary deviation. The secondary deviation occurs when the individual accepts the label, yes, I am, internalizes it, and sees himself or herself as deviant, and then act accordingly. However, the problem is, okay, the labeling theory argues that no deviancy or no crime is intrinsically criminal, but it may become so through the formulation of laws, order, and institutions, and the interpretations by the juries, by the police, or by the religious institutions. So there are also heavy criticism on labeling theory. The major criticism about the labeling theory is that it neglects the processes that leads to the first act of being defined as deviant, or the existence of this act. For example, children from deprived communities tend to have a picture of being thieves more than the children of rich people. So it neglects that the social aspects of it that can lead to certain deviancies, certain crimes. Also, another thing is that it is not very clear that it is the labeling theory that leads to the person to have an increase on the deviant behavior. I mean, for example, in the prisons, delinquents may become increased, like the delinquency rates can increase after prison because the person tends to be in much more interaction with other criminals and learn new ways of crimes, or because of the conviction that he can argue that, okay, whatever, and I will continue at that. So the increased interaction with other delinquents or learning new ways to get to earn money or whatever you are trying after maybe is a problematic for whether labeling is the main reason of increase in delinquency or whether it's the other social aspects that are leading to. The third theory is the conflict theory. It is, as you will see, mostly built upon the Marxist theories of society. It argues that the deviancy is deliberate and it has often a political aspect of it. It is not, the deviance is not characterized by biology, it is not characterized by labeling, it is not characterized by, as Durkheim's method, anomie. Rather, they choose to engage, these people choose to engage in deviancy in response to inequalities of the capitalist system. The preservation of the poor the preservation of power among the ruling class leads to deviancies in the suppressed or the proletariat classes. These people, according to conflict theory, they reject the laws. They reject that the laws are equally distributed among society. Rather, they argue that, for example, the white-collar people or the white-collar crimes can get away with the crimes because the power structure of the society is protecting them. However, the same or even the petty crimes such as little thieves or stuff like that is heavily punished because the power structure is against them. Therefore, they are considered as delinquents, whereas huge corporate crimes in the huge corporate firms, or as we call white-collar crimes, can get away with the deviance. The conflict theory argue that the powerful people also break rules, but they are rarely caught. The other one is control theory. Now, the control theory argued that the crime results from an imbalance between impulses towards criminal activities and the social and physical control to deter it. Travis Hirschi argued that humans are fundamentally selfish and they make calculated decisions, and once that impulse has the benefit more than the social or physical control, then they choose to disobey the rules. They are positively making decisions about which one benefits them more, whether to be in the criminal activity or whether to conform to rules and not do a criminal activity. Other theory is the broken window theory. This is about target hardening and zero tolerance policy. Now, Philip Zimbardo made an experiment about this broken window theory. He left abandoned cars both in the rich people's village and also poor people's left off car. But what he finds out that regardless of race, sex, gender, whatever, the left car will be crushed or vandalized, regardless of the community. So he argues that it is a sign that once somebody is not caring about this kind of a behavior, people become against it. People start acting more. For example, a car is there, its window is open or crashed, so people act more aggressively toward it. Therefore, he argues that there is a need for control or for obedience. There is not an acceptance of deviancy in the communities, regardless of richness or poorness. So when we see about the crimes of the general society, we see that women are more towards the crime against, like, gender-based crimes such as rape or such as sexual harassment. Yes, men also face these kind of crimes, but especially in prisons. But what's important is that women are more considered towards this kind of behavior, and it's also argued in the societies that a woman has to protect herself from sexual harassment through, for example, not going to isolated or deserted places such as buildings, such as building maintenance places, or such as undergrounds, or not wearing very provocative clothes. So then it is argued that she's like cruising for bruising. So it is argued that the women are more possibility to face these kind of crimes. Then there's also the crimes against homosexuality. Now these kinds of crimes are also having a sexual undertone to it, because society is not accepting gays or lesbians or bisexuals or travestites in the society, because they see it as a threat, and therefore they face more criminal charges from other than the straight males or straight females. As we mentioned in the conflict theory, there are also crimes of the powerful, which they may be caught, but again their punishment is less severe in most cases than the people who are not having charged by petty thieves or small crimes. The problem with we also call these the white collar crimes. I recommend here to watch the Pelican Brief of Julia Roberts. It's a very important movie about the white collar corporate crimes and how they are not really punished by the power structure of the society or of the institutions. We also have the unanswered questions about deviancy and crime. Okay, we have criminals. Okay, it's a danger to society. It can be a danger to society, such as murderers or rapists. But is the prison system effective enough for this, for handling these situations? Now, one problem with prisons is that you basically put that person with people who had the same crime or who have the same mentality. So technically you put them together and allow them to do brainstorming or teaching each other new ways or teaching each other new contacts. So the minute that person leaves the prison, he is not conforming to society. In fact, he learns new things. He learns new ways to get away with it. It is also important that once you get that person inside for a decade or more than a decade, then you can't accept, once that person leaves that prison, you can't accept that person to be able to conform to society, to adapt again to the society, because he or she is isolated for such a long time with different rules. Prisons always have different rules than the outside world. So what else can we do? What about the policing? It's often lately see that what policing is effective is on crime prevention rather than punishment. It is argued that the policing techniques such as patrolling the streets are more reassuring for the society and in turn diminishes the potential of crimes. Lately, we also see shaming as a form of punishment that maintains the ties of the delinquent or the criminal to society. Now, unlike prison system, the shaming system works by the people from the society, from that person's own people. It is also an alternative technique, actually. Some criminologists see this technique as like the fear of being shamed by his friends or within the community is more effective than the prison system or the policing technique, punishing technique. There are two types of shaming. The reintegrating shaming is that people control the criminal. They are brought to a court and they talk about that person and how they are ashamed by him, and they are also a part of the system, a part of the rebuilding of that person's integration in the society. So they also work with the deviant person or with the criminal person in making him conform to societal norms. The people have to accept the responsibility for the reintegration. Then there is the stigmatizing shaming. It is also, as you can see, it is related to the labeling theory. A criminal is labeled as a threat to society, and he or she usually cast as an outcast or understood as an outcast. So the stigmatizing shaming is also problematic, because the more you outcast that person, the possibility of him or her relapsing into further crime may increase. Because, again, related to the labeling theory, if you accept the labeling theory, that then he or she internalizes it, and no matter what I do, and the mentality that no matter what I do, I will still be considered a criminal, so why bother to obey the rules? Thank you for listening today. We have discussed the deviancy and crime, and hope to see you next week.